And if you're not watching Monday Night Football, it is time to talk Lorcana, our weekly talk show where we talk about Lorcana news, recent events, etc., speculation. So, for those who come regularly, we've been off for a couple of weeks. It just so happened that both Christmas and New Year's Day fell on a Monday. And so we thought we'd lay off and spend some family time, with our relatives and our daughter. But we are back this week and super excited because we missed seeing a lot of you, and so much has happened. Speaking of our daughter, Erin is putting our newborn to bed at the moment, so she'll join us here shortly. But we have a lot of guests this week. We have a lot to talk about. We have a couple spicy topics to talk about. I know I definitely want to talk about card prices, and that always gets people going because there's a lot of strong opinions about what the right or wrong prices for trading cards are. So we'll get into that. But to start, let me introduce our guests. Then we're going to talk about some upcoming events. Then we're going to talk about some card reveals. Then we're going to talk about the news card. It's going to be great. So as you know, throughout the chat or throughout the show, feel free to drop questions in the chat. We'll highlight them. We've already got some questions that we sourced ahead of time. So it's going to be great. And it can be a great hour. So to start, I want to start by introducing one of our locals here in Austin. This is Marco. Marco is the organized play manager at Game Castle in Austin, one of our local game stores. Marco, thanks for joining us.
Hello, Liam. It's really nice to be here. Man, it's already 20. Let's talk Lorcana. That's crazy. I love it.
I know. I was doing the math on that when I had to put the show notes in, and I couldn't believe it was 20. That's crazy. It's like
it's great, and it's great to be your local game store as always, and really excited for the upcoming events that we have in store and prepared for all of the Austin community.
Yes. Oh, I want to talk about that in a moment because you got a big 1K coming up, which is your biggest tournament ever. And I also know you had a constructed tournament this weekend, so you're all up to speed with the meta. And I'm excited to talk about that. Let me bring in some other guests here. Next, we have Teddy from the Glimmer Gang. Teddy, how you doing?
Hello. Good. I'm doing well.
Thanks for joining us this evening.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, Teddy, you've got an event coming up too, which I make sure I want to plug before the end of the show because people might not be aware of it. It's a charity event. It's pretty cool. And
yes.
I'm excited to talk about it. So that'll be great. Our next guest, I'm surprising him from the green room because I didn't even introduce him. Joining us, he not only does Brandon have his own channel, which is amazing. You should follow him on Twitter, watch his stuff, but he also is one of the co-hosts of This Week in Ink, who's off this week. So Brandon, thanks for taking your off week to join us.
Yeah, I love coming on here. As you mentioned, I have the live stream after this, so usually I have to watch while I'm preparing for it, but we're not having one tonight, so I thought it'd be super fun to jump on, and Liam was very kind enough to let me jump on.
We are honored. We are honored to have you. And we'll have another guest joining us halfway through the show to make it a nice 6, but now making us a nice uneven 5. Our final guest for the entirety of the show is Nicholas Larson, a longtime TCG player, experiencing a ton of different TCGs and TCG commentator. Nick, thanks for joining us. First time on the show.
Hey, and anytime. I'm going to be the odd man out because I don't have a camera. I don't have a setup like all of the lovely 4 that we have over here, so you won't be able to see my beautiful face this time.
But that just means we can make faces at you and you can't make faces at us. So
yeah.
Make sure you jump in anytime you wanna chime in. Most of us can like wave our hands or do this when we want to talk. You're just gonna have to push us aside. So this is fun. A lot to talk about, but I did say the first thing I want to do is make since the last time we had the show, there were a lot of announcements about upcoming cons and Lorcana guests that are going to be there. So I did want to make everybody watching aware of some artist appearances that are coming up in the near future. Let me pull up my BAM. So in the very near future in Houston, TCG Con is going to have 4 Lorcana artists there. A couple of which have appeared at some Lorcana signings. We all know Kendall Hale and Cam Kendall have been around to some cons. Brian Weiss has done some local signings, but never like a big national con, so we're excited he's going to be there. And then Jake Parker has been to a few shows since his cards were announced, but not since his Enchanted card was revealed, and not appearing as a Lorcana artist. So if you are into getting card signs or meeting artists and you're able to make it to Houston, next month, make sure you put this on your radar. And if you can't make it but want your card signed, hit up me or anybody else going to the show, and maybe we can take care of you. Are you all fans of getting cards signed, by the way? I know this is some people fall on one side, some people fall on the other.
Oh yeah, that's one of the things that I enjoy doing the most. I have the baby Captain Hook from set 1. I have it signed by Ryan, Steve, and Shane Hartley, and it's like my prized possession. And
The
it's
Three Musketeers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I personally love getting my cards signed. Not only because they look so cool whenever they're signed, but if I get it signed, it means that I get to interact with the artist that made the card, and I get to talk about what his approach was for making the art on the card. So I really enjoy it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm right there with you. I'm a signed card because you know us. We appreciate the art and the design that went into the card. So it's great to meet the people who brought them to life. Katie chiming in from the chat. That's awesome. I'm glad to see we have a lot of artist appreciators here. On that note, this one I'm not sure if it's on people's radars just yet, but in May in San Antonio, NostalgiaCon is going to have, I believe there are 7 Lorcana artists total. Only 4 have been announced so far. And this should be a fun one. I did neglect to mention, you all should have called me out. There will be a big PPG tournament, Lorcana tournament in Houston as well. So if you're a competitive player and you're into that, as well as meeting artists, TCGCon Houston will be a destination for you. NostalgiaCon, I don't think is going to have any gameplay just yet, or at least they haven't announced it. But as extra, as an extra incentive to go, in addition to 7 Lorcana artists, they're going to have a bunch of Disney artists, including the voice of Goofy and the voice of Max from a Goofy movie, as well as a bunch of others. So if you like Disney, hence the Powerline shirt today. So that might be one to put on your radar. So luckily for us, Marco, these are right in our backyard. So it's easy for us to get down there. Although, Brandon, you're not too far away.
I know. Liam has tried to convince me to go to Houston, and I've been like this close to pulling the trigger so many times. And like, were it not for these OP announcements just like waiting to happen, I might have pulled the trigger already. But I'm trying to hold back the money so I can go to all those.
Yeah, I have to agree on that. We have so many like tournaments coming up. Also, like randomly, they just announced TCGCon back in Miami. That's going to be later in October. So they have stuff like far planned out for some Lorcana events, and then we're also waiting for Ravensburger's events to now start to get situated.
Yeah. Speaking of Miami, the artist announcements are coming, and I don't want to spoil too much, but what I will say is there are significantly more artists coming this year to Miami than last year. Last year there were 12.
We had 12 last year? Yeah.
There are significantly more already booked and confirmed for this year. It's going to be crazy.
This is like the only con that I would go to because I am one of the unfortunate people that like the art on the Hades Enchanted. The Hades Enchanted is like one of like my favorite arts because I love villains in general. So I like the Hades Enchanted. I like Lady Tremaine's Enchanted, and I've heard so many people just be like, "Oh, those arts look they don't look good at all." I'm like, you are like disgracing these artists. They make such good art.
Man, Juan Diego also now does some like really amazing like ink and marker sketches on cards, like of Hades' face and stuff, so he can make that Enchanted pop even more. It's pretty cool. The last event I want to mention before we get into spoilers, and I'm really excited to talk about the spoilers. Marco, you have your biggest tournament ever coming up here in a few weeks, correct?
Yes. So I have a big event. Our biggest event for Game Castle coming up here. It's going to be January the 20th, and it's a 1K. It's going to happen at IkiCon. That takes place in Round Rock, Texas. So just a little bit north of Austin. It's a resort. It has an indoor water park, and they put up the best events in the Austin area. We're super excited. So the 1K, we're going to have $1,000 guaranteed in cash prizes. And then we are doing some mystery grab bags for the first 50 players that registered. And they have the opportunity to open enchanted cards. They have the opportunity to open some cool swag, some playmats. It's going to be great.
I'm super excited. And so what date was that again?
That's January 20th, Saturday the 20th.
And I know that's a long way for a lot of you to travel. So if you're in the area and you can make it, that's amazing. If you aren't in the area, Aaron and I, if we can get the tech working, which I think we're going to, we'll be live streaming and commentating that whole day, the matches, and we'll be doing interviews and all that. It should be, Brandon, it should be another like marathon stream like we did before. And you're welcome to watch of it as well. And additionally, we'll have a guest commentator who I don't want to announce yet because we're still confirming. But I will just say they're a member of the Rooster Teeth crew and have turned into pretty big Lorcana fans.
I think I know who you're talking about.
And so they may be joining us.
I have an idea.
So we're pretty excited about that. Yeah. So let's get into some spoilers. And welcome.
Hi. Thanks.
Yeah. Hopefully, how is she doing?
Good. This is the first night that we tried to put her down at 7, and so we'll see how it goes.
Let's get into some. I see you there in the note there, Franz. EkiCon is the 22nd, and I think the tournament start. What time does the tournament start, Marco?
Noon. So
noon?
The tournament will take place January the 20th, and January the 20th at noon. It takes place at EkiCon. It's a convention here in Round Rock, Texas, which is just outside of Austin.
Perfect. Yeah, so we'll pick up the stream a little before noon, and we'll be streaming all day. Hopefully it works out, and and I think there's already some great players signed up, so we're pretty excited. The great thing about Austin, when we have these tournaments down here, we have players travel from Dallas, from Houston, from San Antonio, and the whole area to compete. And there's some really good pro players that come down, so that should be fun. But let's get into spoilers because I know that's what a lot of people want to talk about. This is one of the things that I want to talk about. We are normally, Brandon, this is your thing. On since you're not streaming tonight, we thought, and there were only 3 cards and not a week's worth. We thought we'd pick them up and give some initial impressions on these. First off, in the chat, if you're watching and you have thoughts, please let us know which of these cards you excited for. I think I know everybody's answer, but I'm just gonna open it up. I've got my opinions.
Brandon worked hard for these cards, by the way.
What do you all think?
Yeah, wait, can we really, before we jump, can Brandon tell us the story of why we got these cards?
Yeah.
I overheard it.
This is a great story. This is an amazing story.
So for those that haven't been around for very long, the team at Ravensburger is known for asking people to vote for card reveals in their Discord, which is a great reason to join their Discord, by the way. If you're not already in there, it's a really fun time. So today, Rochelle, the community manager, basically said vote for Emerald, Ruby, or Amber, and whichever one gets to 100 votes first, 100 reactions on the little message, they would reveal that card. Then there was another Ravensburger employee. His name is Shane, also known as McFly. And he asked Rochelle if he could reveal the Emerald card if Emerald ended up winning, and Emerald was in the lead at that time. So some of us have little ink icons next to our names in the server. So there was a lot of kind of like team battling going back and forth. I'm Team Amber personally because I love the ink. There were a couple Ruby and Emerald players.
Emerald.
And so we had decided, or I'd come up with that once we had reached 100 consecutive votes, because the person had to reach, the card that got revealed had to reach 100 votes first on its own. And so I said, when we reach 100 consecutive votes across each ink, we all should just dogpile onto one ink. That way that we could get the card faster, because it was taking a little bit of time for like people to come in and actually vote. And so at the time, Emerald was doing really good, getting all the way up. Once they got up to about 50, I think we had close to 100 consecutive votes. And so, our collective votes, sorry. And so then we started rooting for everybody to go to Emerald. Emerald started piling up. More people started voting for Emerald. And as they were like 6 or 7 votes away.
So we were so close. So close.
So
I was
close
so
to-
ready for my lunch. I was so ready for my lunch.
So close to getting these reveals. I forget. I just told the story and I forgot what it was. But what was the thing that made me switch? I'm flubbing now. My mind's
the
going
Discord
blank.
kept going by
That's my
so
question.
fast that I couldn't keep track of where you left off in that point.
Trying to think what the catalyst was to have me switch.
You ended up like jumping ship, right? And just like
Yeah, something ended up happening. Oh, I think I was being silly, and I was like, how funny would it be if instead of it like everybody was supposed to dogpile on Amber, if at the last second Emerald, if everybody left Emerald with 90 something votes and Amber came back for the win. Like it would be a huge upset. It would be super funny. So I was like really campaigning for everybody to leave Emerald at the very last second, and a bunch of people followed me doing it. So the Emerald reaction went from like 90 something votes down to 80 something. And I think that took the Ravensburger team by surprise. I think they were ready to reveal the Emerald card. They thought that's what was going to win. And so we'd already, this had been going on for probably an hour or two. And I think they were just ready to reveal the cards and had other work to go back to be honest with you. And so at that point, Rochelle was just like, look, if you guys just get the Emerald one up to 100, we'll reveal all 3 since you guys can't seem to pick which one. So fortunately, due to the chaos that I was able to ensue, we got all 3 cards today rather than just one of the cards, which was super, it was really fun.
Yay, Brandon, for causing havoc.
Man, I can't do this. I can't turn off my logo now that we're in the stream. I have to like duck around it. This is a problem. I'm gonna go to normal scene while we're talking because it's awkward. That's awesome. I said this on Twitter too, but for those who haven't been playing the reveal game too long with Ravensburger, they're super interactive on Discord as that story happens. And if you're not in the Lorcana Discord where they do these kind of, should we call them games, shenanigans?
Shenanigans.
Yeah.
Is a good word for it.
It's a lot of fun. You should definitely jump in the official Discord. And sometimes they sneak onto other people's Lorcana Discords too for some shenanigans. So it pays to be to pay attention. Anyway. So what do we think? I mean, I have to say, the chat is just blowing up about the art on Heal What Has Been Hurt.
So beautiful.
Yeah.
Here, you keep going, Liam. Sorry. I was gonna talk about Stitch because
Stitch is slept on. Everybody's talking about the other two.
Stitch is slept on because one, it's the early game. As much as I hate to say that Ruby Amethyst gets better, this card makes Ruby Amethyst better because been playing Ruby Amethyst for a while now. The one thing that it struggles against is aggro early game and being able to deal with all the small characters that come down because you really don't have, until you get to like turn 5 and obviously turn 7 be prepared, you don't have much early game removal. So being able to drop Stitch down and take out stuff, and it hits the bodyguard Simba as well, which is something that is hard to get rid of. So this, like Nico said, is a slept-on card, which I hate to say it, but Ruby Amethyst is getting better with this card. And it's unfortunate, but that's the world we live in, I guess.
I think this also randomly, it gives, a buff to Ruby Steel. And I've seen that a lot. Really? Coming recently out of, my locals. Everybody is trying to make, the Shere Khan card, very... very slept on for you to be like, okay, I drop this on turn 2, turn 3 I drop Shere Khan, and I take out a character and gain a lore.
I think the Stitch slots right into Ruby Steel. It is gonna make it much more viable now. But the card that I'm more excited for, it's Ursula.
I'm a huge hand control fan. I'm a huge Emerald Steel player.
Ursula is gonna make Emerald discard much more viable now, and the fact that it hits songs and the fact that it hits Amber Steel Song, that's amazing, and I'm so excited to brew something cool with Ursula. So, and the fact that it's inkable, that's also great.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious. Like, would we say that this card is still really good if it was uninkable? Is it that good?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I would
Yeah.
say yes.
I'm glad it's inkable because Emerald seems to have quite a few non-inkables. But yeah, like I'm
Prince John.
almost surprised this card is not uninkable because of the impact I think it's going to have on the game, at least as we see it right now.
Yeah, Emerald Steel as like a package has, I think, like 12 uninkables that you have to play as a whole for the like, if you're going the discard route, you have to play 12 uninkables pretty much. If you're going like Prince John, Lucifer, Bibbidi Boppity, and then Grab Your Swords, those are like cards you have to have in your deck. And having Ursula come out being inkable in a sense is, it takes Flynn Rider's spot, the 2-drop Flynn Rider that people were playing for a while, because now this card allows you to proactively look at your opponent's hand and be like, well, they have only one song that they're keeping for when I play Lucifer, so that my Prince John isn't a major getting major card draw off of them. And I'm also not taking away like just one card out of their hand that they've kept specifically to discard for Lucifer.
Well, that's another reason why the card is so big, because at 2 ink, you can look at your opponent's hand. Even if you don't take a song out of their hand, you're already playing with perfect information, at least for the next couple of turns. So I think it's going to be even bigger in that regard, that it's going to give you open information on your opponent's hand. So I think this card is going to see play not only on this card list, but on every Emerald list because of the information that it gives you.
It's like how people are starting to play Nothing to Hide in Sapphire lists just in general, because Nothing to Hide in the later game is something that you want to be able to look at your opponent's hand, because if they have a bunch of really good cards, you're going to want to be like, I want to look at their hand so that I can know that I'm getting benefits out of this A Whole New World if I get the chance to sing it with any of my 5-drops, or if I have to hold back whenever they have like Be Prepared in the Ruby Amethyst match, because then you can just be like, I'm not going to go too hard onto the board because I know they have Be Prepared, or you can swap it and be like, I'm going to like spam a bunch of little drops that I know that can be just wiped away from Be Prepared.
You know, there's yeah, I saw it, Nibov. Thanks for the note. I banned it here in chat, but I'm gonna try to keep them off Twitch later. There's something else I love about the perfect information though, and it can make your opponent make bad decisions. And by that I mean, like once you know your opponent knows what's in your hand, you start to play this mind game where you're like, you've got to be prepared, and you're like, all right, I've got to be prepared, but I know that they know that I have Be Prepared, and so they're prepared for it. But they know that I know that they know that I have Be Prepared, and sometimes your opponent.
Wait, but are they prepared?
They might not be prepared.
Be prepared.
But yeah, so it's interesting because as soon as you can play like head games kind of with your opponent, and
They should be prepared.
yeah, I don't know. It sometimes against less experienced players, when you have information like that, it does make your opponent suboptimal decisions because they second guess themselves.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, because obviously, like in TCGs, as much as it's not it is a physical game playing the cards down, but majority of it is a mental game. And even just like you said, being able to have that information, it can throw them off. It just does a lot of things because they're thinking more. In a TCG, if you don't have to think that much, and you're winning, then obviously that's how you want to play. But if you have to make them think more and you have to make them like rush their plays, or maybe they do their math wrong, it's that small stuff that adds up into the end.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I also have to mention the flavor of Ursula stealing a song. Like,
yes, it's
just
perfect.
great,
Yeah.
right? Fantastic. And last thing I'll offer, because I think you all said it pretty great. Nobody's talking about the gameplay on Heal It Has Been Hurt, but I will also comment on the art because it's
That's
just
so good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I feel like feel like every time we get a Rapunzel art, we're just blessed. Like I'm happy to see Rapunzel on anything.
The foil version, I
The
saw a comment
foil.
Yeah, I
earlier.
agree.
It's gonna be so. I bet it's all of her hair. Like, it just has to be. I feel like.
That would be amazing.
It's so interesting, Brandon, though, that you say that, because it's not all the same artist who's doing all these Rapunzels.
Yeah.
It's just, like every Rapunzel card is just amazing.
It just looks great.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's the light, or I don't know.
Yeah.
What I love about this one and is on the first set, they had a style that they tried to get all the artists to stick to, and they did a pretty good job, called Modern Storybook, and Nicholas Cole really set the tone. And I think what you saw is a lot of people kind of adhering to this style and model, etc. But slowly you've seen them allow some artists to like break that mold a little bit and ship stylized versions of cards. And we've seen that a few times. I love Jeff Murchie's cards are some. This one is not, I think, the same Modern Storybook like polished look that we've seen. It is very stylized with the like a painting.
Yeah.
Anyway, pretty cool. Any other thoughts on these?
I don't know if it has been revealed, but is Stitch the art for the playmats, for one of the playmats?
Yes.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. Okay, yeah, that's another thing that I was thinking about, because seeing that whole art for Stitch would be pretty good too.
Yeah, totally agree. And I will last note. This is this artist Nicola's first card. It's been an artist we've been watching for a while. And
is this one of the people we message is like, we know you're a Lorcana artist.
Yeah.
But...
you can look online and you can see like who the art team and who the artists are following, and kind of like figure out, okay, like this person's on the radar. And Nicola's been on the radar for a while. So great art, fantastic artist. Wonderful to see this art in the game. Any last thoughts on this before we move on? All right. I really want to talk about card prices because we have some mailbag questions to get to, but I do want to talk about card prices as our next topic, because this is a polarizing topic, and I want to start by rewinding time a little bit and reminding everybody, because we lose track of time sometimes, and let's remind everybody where we were when Rise of the Floodborn was about to come out. I remember Aaron and I were monitoring like Austin social media, and every time somebody said, "Hey, Barnes & Noble has some packs," you're getting in the car, driving as fast as you can.
We were halfway down the freeway and like completely 180'd it to go to Barnes & Noble because they
and for the limit of 2, but it didn't matter. Like at the time, it was like I need for 2 cards. And that's where we were. Boxes were very expensive, and Rise of the Floodborn was going to come out. There was some stress that they were going to be expensive. And at that time, Ravensburger had a message for us.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ryan Miller. I'm the brand manager and co-designer of Disney Lorcana. Well, the game's been out a few months now. It's been a wild ride. It's been an exciting ride. I have been so fortunate that I've been able to go around the world and talk Lorcana and play games and meet so many of you, and I'm going to continue to do that. So if you see me out there somewhere, please say hello. Let's talk some cards. Let's even play a game. I would love that. The team here has been working super hard for the past few years to bring this game to life. They're an amazing team, and I'm really proud to be a part of it. But there are always things we could do better. And that's what I'm here to talk to you about today. And the first thing is production capacity. We have drastically increased our production capacity. And hopefully many of you watching this have already seen the effects of this. But this is something we're going to constantly watch as we grow this wonderful game, Lorcana. Now, the second thing is boost.
All right. That's the part I wanted to talk about. This is basically Ryan saying, because he wasn't talking about prices in the secondary market, but basically what he was saying was, hey, prices, we're bringing you a ton more cards. Prices are going to come down. And a lot of us waited to see if he would deliver. And
can I also just say, on a completely unrelated topic, before we jump into this, because I know there's going to be a lot of opinions, what I love most about that video is that was the reveal of the Madame Mim Enchanted card. Just totally under the radar.
That's true. The official.
That was the official card. Anyway, sorry. Okay, back to it.
No, that's true. It's pretty funny.
Kind of like hanging out in the background.
Yeah, there was thought put into that, like between Rochelle and
yeah.
kudos. I was actually studying that office to look for anything else that was like hidden
Same.
there.
What could we find?
Right? I'm not confident we didn't miss something, but basically, so yeah, this is Ryan and Ravensburger saying, hey, prices will come down, be patient, and they did. And now we're in a scenario, I think, where box prices are way down at MSRP, singles prices have gone way down
Pretty much
to maybe a
tanked.
third, they were for a lot of them,
Mhm.
and that's created strong opinions of various types. And I'm just going to open it up and say, what are your all thoughts on current pricing, the implications, and before I offer my opinion.
I think it's great. I think, like, compared to where we were at, even 3 months ago, I think the game is so much more affordable. You look at top deck lists, and most aren't getting over $300. If they are, it's only barely. Everything's kind of averaging around like $200, which, is not cheap by any means, but is way more affordable than a lot of other TCGs. And I think other people may not be as familiar with. I've always advocated for the game to be as accessible as possible. And so the fact that I can go to TCG Play right now and buy a Rise of the Floodborn booster box for less than MSRP, I think is awesome. And of course, there's a couple cards out there that are a lot more expensive than others because they're just really good cards, but that's going to be the case in any card game. And overall, I think we're in a really solid spot. I think it's good enough where when you pull a legendary or a card that's sought after, you can profit on your booster pack or, gain value out of your booster pack, but it's not so cheap that you have to pull an enchanted for, it to ever be worth it. There's a lot of foil cards that go for good money as well, that you can get lucky on. And I think you have to strike a really nice balance there between having chase cards that make it worth it, I guess, for the collectors to buy sealed product and open sealed product and get value out of what they're spending versus being affordable enough for players to be able to actually play the game and access the game and get their hands on cards, etc., so that we have more players for the game and can continue to see it grow.
I agree. Coming from like a player perspective, like in general, playing like other card games, there are chase cards that are just so much more expensive than like, let's say, a rare that maybe just does a little bit of what you need. So seeing prices of like rares, super rares, and all of that are all the way down, it makes it worth investing into for you to get into the game, because I've had more people come to my locals, I think, in the past 2.5 months than there was in the first chapter, like in general. I think like first chapter, I would barely get like 14 people coming to the store to play League, and then maybe like half of them would stay for a tournament. Now I'm consistently getting like 20 people for League, and then pretty much all of them are staying so that they can play, because they can feel like they can actually afford cards and be able to show up and show out at a tournament. It makes sense for like Enchanteds to be like near $100 because those are very pretty cards and they look like they should be expensive. Imagine if like you pulled the Elsa like Enchanted and it's only like $40.
Yeah.
Marco, I'm interested in your thoughts because you've ridden the game store wave of having these completely unavailable to people and now having stock sitting on your shelf, I think, for the first time.
Yes. So for the first time ever, we do have boxes available for purchase for anyone that wants to come into the store and purchase one, which is great. Unlike other stores might think, this is great for the game, because that means that anyone that wants to get into the game can get into the game, and they actually have. In the past few weeks, I've seen the most amount of new people coming into the game and actually staying at the game, because before, they just couldn't find it. They couldn't buy anything. Now I have all the starter decks in stock. I have boxes in stock that I could be like, hey, if you want some packs, you can have some packs. If you want a specific starter to get into the game, I have it for you. And I don't know about other game stores, but our game store has always sold as close to MSRP as possible, and that's the reason people have rallied up behind us, and that's the reason we have full events the entire time. Every single week we have full events. At the very least, 24 people in our league. We have drafts. We have win-a-box events. And this is also allowing us to do better events and more fun events. Like this past weekend, we just had a win-a-box event that before it would have been unthinkable to run a win-a-box event for only $10 entry.
Yeah, that's a $500 event. Like a few months.
So the amount of people that are jumping into the game because product is so readily available, it's great. I love to see kids jumping into the game. I love to see entire families jumping into the game. So we really enjoy how much product we are now getting, and the fact that I can just like turn to a distributor and be like, "Hey, do you have product?" And the distributor actually says yes. It's amazing.
That's interesting. What's interesting, like everybody here, I think we're pretty much on the same page about how great it is the product's available. I will offer, though, the reason I presented this as a topic is because if you look around social media and other places, it's, people aren't universally positive about the trajectory of prices. And that's because, different people in the DCG space have different lenses and all that. And I could do a whole video on this, but the one thing I will say is, if we have to acknowledge like that this is difficult. This is a tricky thing to get right. We all know that just as there is such a thing as too little product, as we saw on the front end, there is also such a thing as too much product. And it is very possible to hurt a game significantly by overprinting. And so if we're all saying they got the balance right, it's definitely something we should acknowledge that Ravensburger, I don't know. It is a Herculean effort to match supply and demand. And if they've got it right right now, that's something we should definitely applaud.
Yeah, I agree. I think they've done an amazing job right now, and just because obviously, like, you can go back to Gen Con and you can, like, obviously the moment we all think of is that, or Liam, you weren't there because we were both in our starter deck tournament, but I know, Brandon, you were there, and that whole rush of people going in trying to get product. And
was that the rush of Icor?
Yeah,
Brandon had the worst of it.
Was the rush of Icor? That's where it is. Okay, now we found it.
And so I kind of remember that day, in the breaks of our tournament, checking Twitter and also checking different Discords, and people were not happy. It was just terrible. It was absolutely terrible. And I think one of the big things that helped make that day better was that, like, the Gen Con meetup we had later that night. But now that we are in a brand new year, we are 2 sets in. If you take a look at set 1, the most expensive card we had, I think Rapunzel reached around 60. That was the highest she reached. Right now she's sitting at 32. But if you look at Rise of Floodborn, the most expensive card we have is Beast Tragic Hero, and he's at 41. But then the next expensive card we have is Mufasa at 12. And after that is the Beast Relentless at 9. There are only 2 cards in all of Rise of the Floodborn on TCG Play right now that are over $10. And in my opinion, that's great for the game. I don't think that if these legendaries are at $4 or $5, and, like, obviously Beast Relentless is a good card, but if the good legendaries were at that range, then I would say, okay, maybe it's okay, but there's needs to be warning and red flags put up just in case. But the fact that we're at a game right now that, like Brandon said, that decks are averaging between $200 and $300, I think it's a great place, and I applaud Ravensburger for doing everything that they have to get it here.
It's a healthy, like, price to hit 200 for, like, your median, because if you have, like, set 1 Ruby Amethyst was like a $700 deck. That's not a healthy, that's not a healthy spending habit to try and invest in a deck unless you were able to pull, like, the nuts out of maybe, like, a few boxes.
Yeah. This, to me, this speaks to Ravensburger's philosophy on the game. And it is not a common one, I think, because card companies oftentimes are startups or smaller, like, let's say, Legend Story Studios with Flesh and Blood, or perhaps the card game is one of a broad portfolio that they don't want to overinvest in. What card companies often do is for new games, and we see this with One Piece and Bandai, is they will print, smaller amounts and incrementally grow it over time to keep the demand high. And they can be successful that way by slowly growing the supply and keeping demand up and the buzz and everything like that. Ravensburger is taking the opposite approach. And I really believe they're looking like 5-10 years down the road and imagining what this huge player base looks like. And their goal is to get as many players into the game as possible. And they have faith that if they put the cards out there, the game and the IP are so good that the players will come. And so the goal is not, smaller releases and keep the hype up and bring people in. It is literally get it everywhere and let's get people into the game. And I think the thought process is there too, given that everybody acknowledges that cards need to be, have some value to it. The more players we get, the more we'll see the value again start to hold well as we play the and people are hitting tournaments. Mm-hmm. Anyway, sorry, thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
No, I love it. I think you're right. And it's something that I'm very, very happy to see about Ravensburger is I would like to think that they're creating this game with the thought that it will succeed. They're not hoping that this game succeeds. They're developing it and doing all the stuff they're doing, knowing that it's going to succeed. And they have to plan for such a big player base. That's what I literally dream of sometimes is that, in 5 years, having this ginormous player base where Disney Lorcana is one of the most popular card games. And just looking back at times like this, when we're all sitting around here talking like this and being able to, smile about those times and see how far we've come.
Yeah, I totally agree. Any other thoughts on this? Mark, you got any last minute thoughts before we move on to some listener questions?
So I do know why this topic is so controversial online, and I don't think anybody has touched on it, but essentially a lot of people were looking at this game and how scarce it was at the beginning as an investment. So now with so much product on the shelves and so much product available and how the prices have gone down, they've seen a hit on their investment or how they saw it as an investment. So I feel like the people that are against it are not players necessarily, but they're people that invested in the game on their long-term value. And probably that's the crowd that is getting the most angry about the prices going down.
Yeah.
I think you're probably right. I think, to be fair, there's probably also, and you're getting some agreements in the chat here. I do think there's probably also, some players who spent, like $80 a piece on Maleficent who are a little bummed now, and others. But, as TCG players, we do know the risk we're taking, when we purchase cards for events and especially when supply is low. But I think you're probably right, Marco. There's, that's a whole other topic, TCGs and investments. But I do think I will also say, because supply wasn't quite right off the bat, I do have sympathy perhaps for some stores who maybe over ordered the reprint, thinking demand would stay that high, and are now waiting to sell that product, because I know for a lot of LGSs, you need to move stock to invest in the next set, and so there's probably some of those out there. But yeah, sounds like we're on the same page here.
Right. It's a hard thing because you're investing into something you want to play in, and with me playing like 10 years of experience of card games, you're gonna end up taking a loss at some point, and that's just some things that you just have to accept at some point, is that not every card is going to be worth the value that you want it to be. It's going to be at the value of when it's like needed. Like the demand of the card, that's when the value is going to go up, is whenever like a card is played in every single deck. Kind of like, I think the Ursula might be the only uncommon out of set 3 that's going to be like $5 maybe.
Probably.
Yeah, the old Flynn Rider of old. Yeah, I do. Unless anybody has any other thoughts, I want to move on to a couple listener questions. I have a few here that I queued up, but one is a two-parter, and I think I'm going to answer the second part first, and then go to the first. And the second part, Scott asks, do we think availability by the end of the year will be enough for people to have, for anyone to grab packs or a box? And I think we're there, with Floodborn.
Yep, you don't have to wait. It's happening now.
Yeah. So I think the answer is yes. The question now is whether or not if increased demand, Ravensburg can keep predicting it and running out reprints. But so to the first part of the question, since that one is a gimme, thanks for that one, Scott. And I know Scott was in the chat, so appreciate it. What is the big addition in Lorcana we haven't seen yet? I'm going to kind of broaden this question a little bit, and let's expand it beyond like character or card or franchise we're hoping to see, and say, what are our expectations for 2024? It may be that, it may be, OP announcements. What are we most excited for in 2024, or what are we expecting?
For me, it's the first OP event, and specifically the competitive event, because obviously Glimmer Gang, we are a competitive-based podcast. It's what we've been waiting for since we started in 2022, which is wild to think about. And something that I've been talking about on our own podcast and coming out this Friday, Brandon was on, and we talked about what we were expecting, and something that we both agreed on was just being able to see everyone again. I know that's something that I'm really excited to do. I haven't met Aaron yet. I haven't met a lot of different people that I didn't get to meet at Gen Con, and I'm really excited to meet. So while I am excited to be able to go and play at the first event and experience that, to be able to meet everyone that I haven't met, because we've grown a lot since Gen Con. All these new creators and people who weren't able to make Gen Con, that's what I'm most excited about for this year.
I'm excited to meet you too, Teddy.
Definitely, I'm more excited as well for the first event, because being able to see everyone is why I play TCGs. It's not even for like competing. Obviously, that's one part of it, but another part of it is interacting with everyone. So like whenever we were all together with Gen Con, so like when I first met all of you, like Liam, Brandon, Teddy, I officially first met you guys through Franz, and that was like one of the biggest things is I was able to introduce other people because of meeting all of you. I've spread all of your guys' YouTube pages, all of your content to everyone. And that's the biggest thing that I like as a community, is being able to just grow the reputation of the game and everybody else who are content creators. Like I still have Franz's weird like his cards that he was giving out at Gen Con for Traverse Tavern. Like I still have those, and I give them out to people who are looking for like competitive content.
I didn't get one. I want one card. Coming for that card, Franz, if you're watching.
Oh yeah. For me, the thing that I'm the most excited about for 2024, like you guys said already, it's organized play. But from the store point of view, I want to see how many people come into the game because of organized play being a thing. I know a lot of players, a lot of TCG players that have been on the branch of joining Lorcana, but they want a competitive aspect, or they want an organized play direct from the company. And I think this is going to grow the community even further. And I'm excited to see all the new faces joining the game, all the new pros joining the game. And then specifically for me, I'm excited for Judge Program. If you don't know me, I'm a big TCG judge. When it comes to Magic, I'm a level 2 judge. I'm a judge for One Piece, and I just enjoy judging as a whole. So I really like the judge programs, and I'm excited to see what they come up with.
Actually, let's talk about judge programs, because I know a couple of you wanted to talk about that, and we'll just that's a nice segue, and I love a good segue. What are you all excited to see in a judge program, or what makes a good, successful judge program?
Something that I'll say, even though I have never judged once in my life, my background was Pokemon before coming to this game, and I know their judge program. They have the professor program, and that's how you judge and stuff. But something that I know that they do well is their support for judging. If you judge, usually your LGS will have product or something allocated for the judge as a little payment or reward. And that's something that I hope Lorcana does as well, is these judges, they put so much time and effort into learning all the minute details of the game that your really competitive players will know, but not the like just everyday person may know all these minute details. And so I hope that they put in effort to reward those judges for their work and what they do for the game as a whole.
I agree. For coming from like Dragon Ball and One Piece, like I was a judge for both of those games. I'm currently the judge for my locals for Lorcana until we get anything official. And that game, they have judge promos that they give out to people. They have like they'll Dragon Ball at one point helped fly out people to like Vegas to do their judging and all that. So like I don't expect anything like that to be the first official like judge program. Be like, oh, if you get to judge for an event, we'll fly you out and have all that. Like just being able to judge for an event is still very rewarding because we know Sneaky did it at the Miami event from last year, and it looked like he was having a lot of fun being able to just interact and like walk around, be able to help people out, and that's mostly what you are as a judge, is you help people out no matter what, and it doesn't matter that you're getting rewarded for it. You're doing it more for like the good of the game because obviously you don't want somebody who's you don't want somebody who's like very new at the game to look at you like, oh, you're only doing this because you're getting paid to.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well,
So yeah, when
Go
it
ahead.
comes to me, what I want to see is an actual structure program that is supported by the company. Because you have other games, not pointing fingers at anyone, that rely on third parties or rely on a judge program that was created by someone else, that at the very end it falls apart, or it's not supported anymore. So the fact that the company would be willing to support the fact that Lorcana would be willing to support judges and reward them in a way will be great. The fact that they can have structured tests for judges, because don't get me wrong, the fact that anyone can be a judge doesn't mean that everyone should be a judge.
I agree. That is
Judges, they need to be more knowledgeable. They need to have all of their bases down, and to an extent, I believe that they need to prove it. So having testing for judges or some type of structure to judging would be great. Just because you want judges for your local events, but also for the next step. You want judges for competitive events, and you want them to be as prepared as possible. And I think structuring the judge program would be the best part for Lorcana to do.
I agree. One thing I will say, so first, anybody from Robbinsburg, if you're watching, we have two amazing candidates right here for your judge program. Some fantastic advice, and Nick, you have some fans here in the chat as well.
I'm loving all the people in the chat who are loving Nick.
So you're doing something right.
When I ran my event, they like showed so much support in general for it. Obviously, I haven't actually ran like an official event before, so the one that I ran for my locals was like the first official event, and everybody was so welcoming, like, and just the Lorcana community in general when it comes to judging, they understand that the cards don't say exactly what we're meant to rule them as. So it's very heartwarming that everybody is willing to wait and have you have the correct ruling for them for when it comes to tournaments.
Yeah.
Where can I segue?
Oh yeah.
Speaking of judges and competitive events.
Yeah, that's true. I want to. Yeah, we do have to segue real quick. Fantastic comments in the judge program. The one thing I want to offer. Thanks, Aaron, for that segue. Is,
speaking of Aaron,
I want to. Speaking of Aaron, I do want to offer one comment before we pull our next guest in, and that is a comment that Stephen made, Stephen Gettle in the chat about, and some other people echoed about hoping that bunch of competitive players coming to Lorcana won't change the dynamic, and we lose a lot of the diversity that we see, both in terms of age and gender and everything else. And I do echo that, and I will say I think that that's on all of us, members of the community, to continue to create an engaging atmosphere, and then also to help people who are new to TCGs, maybe non-traditional TCG players, to access competitive events if that's what they want to do, to lower the barriers to entry and make it less intimidating.
I'm gonna just side, because speaking of Aaron and speaking of competitive events and speaking of judging, I want to get to that really fast. But I do want to take a minute and brag on Marco and his team at our local LGS, at our LGS. The reason we love going to Game Castle, the reason we love his team, they always have a place for me to feed Olena when we're there, and they make her feel really comfortable, and we'll tell people to keep it down, and if she's trying to sleep, and it's just an amazing community. And I think that is what is going to make this game more accessible, is to have people in the community, to have LGSs understand that, to meet players where they're at in their life, and to be that welcoming and open environment. Sorry. Okay.
No, couldn't say anything better myself. I will say, I hope I'm really excited. We have a surprise guest here at the end of the show. We're gonna bring in Aaron, who is one of the Lorcana twins.
Hello. And, can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
Nice.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks
Aaron,
for having me.
I want to do a whole show with you in the future, but for now, thanks for jumping in. We invited you last minute. For those who don't know, Aaron won, I think, was the winner of, the biggest Lorcana tournament to date, with 250 some odd people and a 1K prize pool with a great top prize. And I was really excited when I saw you won. I was like, I know him.
Yeah, I was really surprised that I did win. I thought I'd be, out in the first day, but I guess it went well for me. And then we decided that the second day would happen instead of playing anything. And so I got to kind of sleep on it and practice a little more. And then I wasn't sure who I was going to get matched up against, but the pairings, I ended up playing someone I played the previous day in round 2 for the semifinals. And that went well again. And then the finals was pretty scary. I know they were playing a deck that had taken out a lot of Ruby Amethyst players, and that's the deck I was playing. So I knew I'd have my work cut out for me, and it was really close. Watching it back was pretty cool to see how close it was. But yeah, in the end, I just barely got it done. So I was really surprised. I didn't expect it at all, but it was a lot of fun and a great event. Everyone was super friendly, and it was super convenient too, just to be able to play from the comfort of your apartment or wherever you're at. And it was cool to see how many people played too, and just how many people are interested in the game.
So you said you were super surprised. What do you attribute your success to? What set you apart? What helped you seal the deal? Because a 9-round event followed by a top 8 cut is a lot.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, well, I went to Miami, and I met you guys there, and Brandon, so that was cool. I don't know. I think there I wasn't really playing a meta deck, so maybe that contributed to it. But I think I only went 4-4 there, which I was still pretty pleased with and happy with. And my brother played there as well. We actually met in the 3rd round out of all the people there, had to play each other, and he beat me 2-0 there too. So I don't know. I feel pretty confident in our ability to pilot decks pretty well and stuff. But I still feel different matchups can be pretty good or bad. And, you can always have a bad draw too, or just misplay, here and there. Try not to do that though. I don't know. I think in the event though, I decided to play a Ruby Amethyst bounce list, and I think it was just super consistent. And I think when set 2 was first announced, the bounce archetype really appealed to me, just kind of the fun of it. And so that's the one I probably played the most of. But I know when the set just dropped, I was using more of the Arthurs and Pinocchios to be really aggressive, and LeFous, and that just seemed maybe more susceptible to steal being a problem. So I switched it up for this one, and I ended up facing, I want to say 7 Ruby Amethysts in the first day. And I think my deck, it had a couple spellbooks in it, and that just closed out so many games against them that I ended up beating all of the Ruby Amethysts. So that really helped me get to the finals. The other 2 matches I had the first day were kind of rough, but especially that Emerald Steel discard, that was a tough one. That gave me the loss. And then I ended up having a draw due to time against Ruby Sapphire. But yeah, I mean, the meta didn't seem too diverse from what I got to face, but I guess my deck was pretty good in the mirror match. So I think that really helped a lot too.
I was gonna say
Apparently.
your list
Before
was
we-
very interesting.
Aaron, I
Yeah, I
do want to ask you about your list
Yep.
real quick. And I do want to say, Teddy, I know you had to go like at the hour mark, and we're going to go just a couple minutes over. So thanks for joining us, Teddy. Everybody, make sure you follow Glimmer Gang podcast if you're not following them already. And Teddy's got an awesome announcement coming out or going on right now. So go follow Glimmer Gang for a really cool event coming up this month. Thanks for joining us, Teddy.
Yeah, of course. We're running the Glimmer Gauntlet. It is a combination of 15 different content creators, and we're just seeing what the best ink combo is, and it's for charity. So the winner, everyone's chosen charity, and all the money goes to the winner's charity.
Nice.
And you have several people who may be competing on this stream tonight. So we're excited. So
Who knows? Who knows?
Who knows?
All right.
Possibly.
All right. Thanks,
possibly
guys.
not. Hey, thanks, Teddy. See you later.
Yep.
Aaron, we're just going to go a couple minutes over time, I think, because I do want to ask about your list. What did you do differently than I think a lot of the Ruby Amethyst we see out there?
Well, I actually, like the night before the tournament, I was thinking I was going to play Sapphire Steel just for fun, and I hadn't really tested that too much, but I was trying that a bit, and I'm having decent success, but I felt like I had to work really hard for some matchups, and yeah, it just seemed a lot more tough. So I thought, why don't I just switch back to more what I know? But I actually checked one of the deck websites that have a lot of decks there and found one that I really liked, but it wasn't playing any of the spell book. So I tweaked a couple of those things. But yeah, I think some of the differences, like the Cusco, ended up being pretty nice sometimes. Just I know in the list, like a lot of times you want to make sure you play a 1-drop. And then especially if you're like stuck with only a snake in your hand as the 2-drop, which you can't even play if you didn't play a 1-drop. So having the Cusco as like an alternate 2-drop option if you don't have the 1-drop was really nice. And it gives you a card when it's banished. So it's pretty good. And then I don't know, like the fidget card that's evasive and 3/2. There were a lot of like Surfer minis in the meta. And so that helped me. I don't know, like sometimes I'd play it and when they'd have the mini and it was nice because then they didn't want to quest at all. Or if they did, he'd just take them out and stick on the board. And, or maybe they didn't like have anything that could hit evasives and then he was free to just quest or, sing friends on the other side or something like that. So, but a lot of times I play him too. And then they used Teeth and Ambitions and just took him right off the board. So I know it was kind of risky, but sometimes it paid off. Sometimes it didn't. And then I think the Elsa was pretty nice. There's only one in there, but yeah, I think she was really good at pinning down like their Ursulas if they ever got that out. So they couldn't sing Be Prepared first. And I felt like I was just trying to put the pressure down and make them not have the easiest turn so that if they did wipe the board, I'd get to kind of rebuild it first. And I guess also I didn't include any of the Dragon in the list. And I think that made it kind of a quicker, more aggressive build. Not relying on, getting up to that high ink count. And yeah, some games, there's one game, I don't know, I got stuck on like 3 ink for, a couple of turns past the third turn. But I lucked out because I top decked like 2 more Surfer minis. So I had 3 of them going and it ended up working out. But I thought I was going to lose that for sure until I saw those because the rest of my hand was like a bunch of Be Prepareds and Lady Tremaines I couldn't ink up to. But I don't know. There was definitely some luck involved too and some close games. But yeah, I think there were just a lot of good tech cards in there that were good in the mirror match. And since I ended up against so many of those, just went my way.
It's fun.
Nice. I do have a question for you. So, like after 9 rounds, after top cut, how does it feels to come on top? Like I know, has it hit you that you're probably one of the best players on Lorcana out there?
I mean, that was like, it was just so surprising to me. I mean, I know I've played a decent bit and I think my brother is really good too. And we can always play against each other and test whenever we want, which is nice. But yeah, I don't know. I've watched a lot of players like play on Pixelborn or a lot of YouTube videos and stuff. And they always seem so good and have like this rich TCG history of, success in the past. And so, yeah, I don't know. It's easy to get intimidated, by that. But I think like I practiced a lot too. So I guess it's cool to see I was able to hang with them. And yeah, it was really fun too, how competitive some of the matches were. Because I mean, it's always fun to win, but like when it really felt like a challenge and that I had to be playing, at my best, like it made it even more satisfying. So yeah, I definitely didn't expect it, but it was cool to get it done.
Nice.
You definitely get to claim title as the best twin now, right? Like surely.
Oh man, I don't know. I don't know how that'll sit with Lorcana twin too, but no. But yeah, he beat me at Miami, so that's
But
I don't
that
know.
Aaron
We
infers
beat each
that
other
you're-
a lot.
That infers that you're Lorcana twin number 1. So I mean, your base.
I guess.
I mean,
I
it's
mean,
true.
Yeah.
technically, I was born just a little bit earlier, so that's kind of where that comes in.
You can be like, oh, I've won this tournament now. What have you done?
Yeah, I got
I
beat
guess
you in
if we're
Miami.
ever not getting along, I can whip that one out, I guess.
So something I wanted to ask, why no dragon? I know it makes your deck a lot like it makes it more unpredictable when you're going to 9 mana and like I know like a lot of people when Ruby Amethyst plays 9 mana, they're like, oh, well, here comes a Maleficent. So like,
Yeah.
was it just like you didn't want to be that predictable when it came to that?
I think it's just it kind of. I mean, it was definitely some matches where it seemed like it would be great to have when I did get to those high ink totals. But I know in some matchups, I was just worried like too that maybe there's some really aggressive games and I won't have time to get up to the 9 ink. And yeah, and maybe like if I'm really laying down the pressure, which did end up happening in a lot of the games, then like there wasn't such a need for that, or maybe they just wipe the board beforehand, and then there wouldn't be anything to remove with her if I played her after Be Prepared or something. Yeah, the same kind of happened with Tremaine too. Like sometimes there was one awkward game where I maybe had a couple of Tremaine in hand and then nothing else to play, and they just wiped the board, and I didn't really want to throw her down there and get no value, but. Yeah, I don't know. I think there were definitely games like against the Seal where it would have helped, especially when they were helping to ramp me to have the Dragon. And I guess it's inkable, so like it doesn't hurt. But I think trying to include some of the other techie cards just cut down on my ability to include all the high top end ones. And I do think it made it a little quicker and more aggressive against the other Ruby Amethyst decks that did have the Dragon. So
I have to give you a lot of respect here, and for like taking this list that has been so prominent, or at least these colors that have been so prominent across, I mean, all of Rise of the Bloodborne, and it's so easy to get tunnel visioned on all these cards that people say are like you have to throw in the deck. Because I mean, we've been talking about it, but like looking at the list at my other screen, there's so many cards that you either cut a card or like your one of Elsa. Like there's so many different things you did to this list that it's obvious that both you did lots of testing and found where cards were unnecessary, but also just seemed like you were just kind of like, you're going to do your own thing. And like it paid off, which I think is just super cool. Especially even though it's still Ruby Amethyst, if there was going to be a Ruby Amethyst list that was going to win, I'm glad that it's one that you really took and just like made your own,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, it's nice to be able to use some of the cards that like at first glance I didn't know if Cusco would be that playable. Looks really cool though. He's a cool character. But yeah, it's cool to see that there are some cards that can kind of shine later on when the meta gets adjusted. And yeah, the fidget too. Like he reminded me a lot of the Peter Pan from set 1, the Emerald one. That's evasive, and I mean I don't think he saw a lot of play either. And big fan of the character, so that was a little disappointing. But hey, maybe he'll find his way into a list someday. And I know there's another one coming in set 3, but yeah, I think the spell book was super important to the list too. I know some people talk about not thinking it's always necessary. I don't know. I feel like in a lot of my games, I started to lose control of the board toward the end, maybe because I didn't have as many top end cards as some of the Ruby Amethyst decks. And that spellbook just really helped me close it out before they were able to finish it off. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's definitely like a core package with all the bounce things that usually are in every list. But yeah, it's nice that there's some tweaking that can be done to some of the more tech cards. So yeah, it was a lot of fun to play too. I think it was just kind of the deck I started with when set 2 came out. But it looked a lot different than this version. But yeah, it's cool. There's flexibility, and I'm sure now there'll probably be a lot of those other like the Steel Emerald discard and the Steel Sapphire trying to counter it. I guess now with all the Ruby Amethyst that was in the tournament. yeah, I hope there's more decks to be found too that can, take it to them pretty well. I know like Mufasa seems to have some potential because it's kind of annoying. Like if you be prepared him, he'll just spit out something else. And I mean, that's really cool though. I think that's thematic. So if we could make a list work with him, I'd really enjoy that. I know the Ruby Amber one does seem to do pretty well too. And they can have the late game removal as well. So I don't see why not, why that couldn't work. But yeah, it's just exciting to see what other people came up with too. And there were a lot of different variations. I know, like I started more with the Arthur and Pinocchio earlier in the set because Arthur just seemed like such a fun concept too. And with LeFou, if you can just restand your things and never let people challenge them, I mean, it's pretty frustrating to play against. But also, if you're behind, it might feel a little slow too. And I mean, he's uninkable and can be a little clunky, but I don't know. I really like Arthur too, so it was fun to see like a couple of the lists were using him and got very far as well.
That's so cool.
And yeah.
Now, I was just going to echo, before we close off here, I was going to echo what Brandon said and what you said. Like, I love this exploration of some slightly off meta cards and making your own tweaks, because I do think people fall into the trap sometimes of thinking with a competitive meta that the only way to compete is to find top decks that have performed well and to like copy them and then to learn those decks. And I think you really demonstrated that by learning a particular deck, by learning a particular color pair, and then tuning it, finally based on your play style and based on, what you think will do well on a given day, you can be really successful. So I think people shouldn't be afraid to play around, with their lists. And I think that's something some people are intimidated by. But
I think you see a lot of videos like covering the like certain lists that do well, and then it makes sense. A lot of people probably jump on those and try to copy and play around with it and see if they can have success with them too, and that's cool. But yeah, it's cool to see also that it does pay off to play around with the list a little bit and see if other cards work out. Yeah, there's a lot of cards from set too, like Sisu. I really want to try to make that work somehow, or maybe like a interesting green seal control list or something. I don't know, just trying to make some cool cards work that haven't seen much play. That might be a fun challenge just to give a try on the side. But yeah, I don't know, sometimes it's tempting to just grab a deck that you feel is going to be pretty consistent for a tournament. So I thought I'd try that route this time, and worked out.
And it paid off for sure. Congratulations, man. Like that was a big effort from you, and like that was great. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, it was a lot of rounds, and but yeah, it was fun to play that many rounds, I guess, and just be consistent with it. Yeah, I was surprised, but it was very satisfying in the end.
Aaron, where can people follow your Lorcana journey from this point forward?
Well, my brother and I have a YouTube channel. We're the Lorcana Twins on YouTube, and then we have a Twitter, I guess now it's X, under the same name. And then we did take a break from making videos for a while. We had been making them like leading up to the release of Lorcana, kind of as a way to like build some hype, but also just to help us explore our outlet with it, since we were so excited and it just felt like it was never going to release and it was so far away. But yeah, finally it's out. And then once it released, we hadn't put out another video since. We've just kind of been enjoying playing it and stuff. But yeah, we're kind of excited to get back into it. So maybe later this week we'll put out our first video on the return. So, but we've appreciated like all of your guys' content and seeing everyone that has kept at it so consistently. Like we love watching all that stuff, and helps us stay on top of what's going on out there in the meta and everything else, and what people are up to and how they're enjoying the game. So yeah, that's cool. And yeah, playing locally, we've done that when we can. I know place we go to has multiplayer during the week, so that's usually what we're able to make it to. And that's a lot of fun, and much different than single player. I don't know like what decks to build for that, so I don't know. I'd be curious if anyone knows like some really good ones. But I've messed around with like that Alice card falling down the rabbit hole, and Tremaine in a blue-red deck. That was kind of fun. Just maybe cards that do more in multiplayer than they do in single player. But yeah, I don't know what like a top tier multiplayer deck would look like, but it'd be cool to see if they ever do like multiplayer events or something.
Marco, that sounds like a challenge for us. We're gonna have to We're gonna figure that
Oh
out.
yeah, I can definitely come up with some multiplayer options for some people to have fun in groups. So yeah, that would be great.
I have a 2v2 format we'd love to do a tournament for.
Oh yeah.
I do want to go around the horn here for everybody else, but I want to start by saying everybody who stay around to the very, very end. I'm going to do a giveaway of one of our play mats before we sign off. But I want to say thanks for joining us tonight. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, we appreciate anybody following along. Hit that subscribe button or follow on Twitter or wherever you're watching. We're on like 4 different platforms. And we have a Discord server if you want to jump in. But Aaron, thanks for joining us. Super fun to have
Thank
you
you
here.
for
And I want
having
to
me.
do a whole show in the future.
And my brother would like to come on too. Yeah.
We want both of you.
Yeah,
Brandon,
he's just kind of sick lately, so he's almost getting over it though. So he'll be ready next time, whenever that may be. So
excellent. You should make a last minute trip down to Houston.
oh wow.
Brandon said he's coming.
Sounds
I'll see you in Houston. Brandon, thanks for joining us last minute. Where can people follow you?
Thank you guys for having me. You guys can subscribe to me on YouTube at B-Squared24. You can also find me on Twitter and on Instagram at B-Squared24YT. And that's me.
That's great. And Nicholas, hey, how can people follow you? Thanks for joining us as well. Appreciate it.
So I don't have a YouTube yet. Stay tuned for that. But I'm mostly on Discord as Nikko-san, NIKKOSAN05. Or if you follow me on Twitter, you'll just type in the same thing, but instead it's 0005. Somebody somewhere in the world has took my actual alias. So
that's funny. And Marco, I mean, we've plugged Game Castle Austin. Thanks for joining us. Is there any socials you'd like to plug where people can follow your Lorcana journey?
Yeah, so for Game Castle, you can follow us on Facebook as Game Castle Austin. That's also where you're gonna find the information for our 1K coming up on the 20th. Remember, 20th at IkiCon. And then if you just want to follow me, you can find me as MTG Marco on all social medias, that being Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I'm a big Magic guy, so MTG Marco.
All right, that's awesome. Thanks for joining us. Last, I'm gonna do a giveaway of this playmat. If you already have one, please don't compete. But what I want to do after the show, all you have to do is answer this trivia question correctly and be the first one to tweet the answer and tag us. It's an art-related trivia question, and you may have to Google it, or if you've watched our streams before, you'll know the answer. But there's an artist, a magic artist, not a magic artist. Wow. See, you got in my head right now. There's a Lorcana artist, a brand new artist in set 2, fantastic, who recently competed in and won the Mermaid drawing challenge. If you can identify who that is and tweet about it, if you're on the Twitter, if you're not on Twitter, you can send us a Discord message or hit us on Facebook or whatever. But the first one to let us know who that artist is, just send us your address and we'll send you this playmat. Lorcana artist, one Mermaid. That's your clue. All right, everybody, thanks for joining us this evening. Until next time.
Yeah.
What's our sign-off catchphrase?
Sign off catchphrase.
Sign-off catchphrase.